Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today, we are talking about Sony Spider-Man spin-off movies. Now, as of the recording of this video, there have only been 4 Spider-Man spin-off movies released. You had Venom that released in 2018, along with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse the same year. Then we had Venom Let There Be Carnage, the sequel to Venom. And then Morbius with Jared Leto. And I recently came across this article from Game Rant here, and that is why Sony Spider-Man spinoffs don't work. The Sony Spider-Man universe has taken blow after blow, and they refuse to lie down. What does the company keep getting wrong? Now, speaking for me personally, the only Spider-Verse movie that I have seen is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is the animated movie. I haven't seen Venom Let There Be Carnage, or Morbius as of the recording of this episode. So this is not my personal opinion on these movies, with the exception of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But let's actually dig into this article from Game Rant here. In a world with countless cinematic universe franchises, most of which are about comic book superheroes, it can be a bit sad to watch one fail time and time again. Some have the courtesy to disappear after only one entry, obviously referring to Universal's Dark Universe that they try to set up with the Mummy, with Tom Cruise as the Mummy, which was a terrible movie. But others just drag themselves back up the mountain to try again every time. Venom was not box office poison. That is a true statement. Venom was not box office poison. Morbius, the living vampire, managed to die twice. Craven is apparently not going to be a hunter anymore. Who even is El Muerto? One crushing blow after another dealt to Sony's efforts to make Spider-Man content without letting the hero make an appearance. Yet the SSU, I'm assuming that's the Sony SpiderVerse, will not stop no matter who asks them to. Now, since they brought up the box office numbers, let's look at the box office numbers. Venom was not box office poison. Yes, Venom 2018 was made on a budget of $100 million and grossed $856,085,151 worldwide. So that is a true statement when they say that Venom was not box office poison. It's probably the most successful of the Spider-Man spin-off movies as of the recording of this video. But its sequel, Venom Let There Be Carnage, was not received as well. And it was made on a budget of $110 million, so slightly more than the first one, but only grossed $506,863,592 worldwide by comparison to the first movie. So you did have a drop-off. They brought up Morbius, Morbius the Living Vampire. Was a box office bomb. It was made on a smaller budget of only $75 million, but it only grossed $163,865,530 worldwide as of the recording of this video. And hell, even Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, this was probably the most well-received of all 4 of these, all these Spider-Verse movies as of the recording of this video, only made $375,540,831 worldwide against a budget of $90 million. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse did not deal with Peter Parker. They centered the entire movie around Miles Morales, who was never a popular character to begin with. So, centering it around the wrong character, yes, probably didn't help it. It doesn't matter that it's the best received. Everyone saw it was going to be, Miles Morales' Spider-Man, and probably checked out. But anyway, getting back to this article from Game Rant here, they bring up the box office, and so I decided to divulge into those numbers. But here we go. As long as Sony has the legal rights to make Spider-Man related films, they will continue to do so, and everyone knows why. Spidey is consistently the most popular character in the Marvel catalog. He's typically competing with Batman for the most popular superhero in general. Almost anything with Spider-Man in it is guaranteed a massive box office return, but as Sony has proven, movies adjacent to the character have a much less impressive success rate. Sony fought very hard to keep the MCU from taking sole rights to the character, and they have to keep using the pieces they have, or they risk a competitor dominating even more content. With that in mind, it doesn't ultimately matter how ill-advised, poorly executed, or even financially unsuccessful each entry is. They're going to keep coming. And this is a true statement here about, not just Spidey being the most popular character in Marvel and competing with Batman, is that almost anything with Spider-Man in it is guaranteed a massive box office return. You can look at the more recent success of Spider-Man No Way Home, making, $1.9 billion? But even The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which was not well received at the time, did not actually lose money for Sony. They barely broke even, but Sony did not lose any money on the Amazing Spider-Man 2, so that's yet another true statement here. The best movie in the SSU is Ruben Fleischer's 2018 Venom. Again, this is this article's opinion, not my own. I personally have not seen Venom, so right now I would say that the best movie is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because they actually fixed the character of Miles Morales. But as I said earlier, how many people swore off Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, seeing that it was a movie centered around Miles Morales, and Miles Morales ain't that good of a character. None of the comic book fans really liked him, and even the normie conformies are looking at it going, who's Miles Morales? And, my answer to that is exactly, who is Miles Morales? But anyway, I'm tangenting again. The best movie in the SSU is Ruben Fleischer's 2018 Venom. It's also the first official entry in the franchise after the unfilled ending of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Venom doesn't work all the way through, but it does have an intense contingent of fans and a unique charm to it. Tom Hardy's unhinged performance as both Eddie Brock and Venom made him a weirdly hidden gem superhero movie performance. The action scenes are well handled. Venom's unique powers are handled with a sense of creativity. It's full of flaws, but Venom is ultimately inoffensive. Venom was rewarded for its mild competence with a massive box office return, a lesser sequel, and an upcoming end to the trilogy. What did the first salvo of the franchise do better than its ongoing efforts? The big obvious takeaway would be to only base the films around characters with an enormous fan base. Venom is one of the most popular Spider-Man villains of all time, regardless of the quality of the stories he appears in. Well, actually, and Venom has a very unique history in the comics because he started as a villain, but then over time became more and more of an anti-hero. So, again, they're not wrong in this statement that Venom is one of the most popular Spider-Man villains. Another one would be Green Goblin, another one would be Doc Ock, and the other one would be Sandman. But I would argue their popularity came more from the movies, from the Sam Raimi movies in particular, and not really the comics. But Doc Ock was always a popular Spider-Man villain long before the Sam Raimi movies. But again, I'm tangenting once more. Every Spider-Man movie or game has to contend with the onslaught of fans asking when Venom will enter the adaptation. Starting the SSU with Venom was an obviously excellent choice, but he was possibly the only heavy hitter Sony had in the stable. Due to the nature of the deal between Sony and Marvel, fans can't know which characters Sony could drop into these films, but they can know which ones they passed on. In 2018, the same year they put out Venom, Sony canceled Silver and Black. It would have been the big screen debut of mercenary Silver Sable and anti-hero thief Black Cat, both popular characters in their own right. The old guard director Gina Prince Blythewood was attached to direct the project, and it appears to be shut down. At best, it's been converted to a TV series, but there's been no news on that since 2020, and that's a real shame with Silver and Black, because that's actually one of the few movies that actually could have worked. They could have made it really cheap, just done a simple heist movie, focus on Silver Sable and Black Cat, bada bing, bada boom, they're done. To me, the movie practically writes itself, but to some other people, it might not. But anyway, instead, Sony seems to be plowing ahead with unknowns like El Muerto. Yeah, why the hell are they moving on with El Muerto? Nobody knows who the hell El Muerto is. More normie conformies at least know who Black Cat is by comparison to El Muerto. So, again, it's a double-edged sword here. To make a movie centered around a lesser-known character, it can work in theory, and you can look at Guardians of the Galaxy for that. But the problem is the character may be so obscure and so outside of the mainstream that normie conformies look at it and go, well, if Spider-Man is not in that movie, then I'm not going to go watch it. Why the hell am I going to go watch a movie based on El Muerto if Spider-Man isn't in it? Now, A movie surrounding Silver Sable and Black Cat, yeah, sign me up. But El Muerto, no, I'm gonna more than likely pass on that. It's entirely possible to take an unknown character and turn them into an icon. Ask James Gunn how he keeps pulling it off. But the continued problems come back to a much larger issue with the franchise. Someone who watched the ending of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, or any part of Morbius would be aware of the problem with the SSU. The franchise is starting from a place of loosely tying its worlds together and making something overwhelmingly bland. The naked corporate desire to blindly ape the profitable aspects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe has completely cratered any actual interest one could have in the individual films. The first entries of the MCU could have been completely unrelated to their peers and still played out excellently. If the connected universe aspect of the MCU had flopped, they'd still have several good films. Sony is pulling the cart before the horse, claiming this impossible franchise model by birthright, and forgetting the only thing fans actually want. Fans don't want an interconnected continuity between films they don't like and characters they don't care about. If Sony wants its SSU projects to start gaining some of the public cash of Marvel or DC's efforts, they have to focus on making good standalone superhero movies. Venom works, at least in parts, because it captures a percentage of what people like about the character. Sony's other efforts fail because they don't see these fixtures as characters who can lead stories. They see tentpoles in their desperate attempt to take someone else's gimmick without the talent. Now, here's the problem that that they did not bring up about this, Sony SpiderVerse, or the SSU, the Sony Spider-Man universe, as they're calling it. I'm just calling it Sony SpiderVerse just for the sake of argument. The biggest issue with these movies is their budgets. Let's be honest. Did Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse really need $90 million, given that it was an animated movie? Why couldn't they slash the budget in half? Morbius should have been like a $20 million movie at best. Venom was the one that really made the money, but again, Venom is the exception and not the rule, because Venom Let There Be Carnage made less money than the initial one. So this is the real problem with these spin-off movies, is that they're trying to go too big by interconnecting them. They are right in that regard. This article from Game Rant here is right in that regard of Sony is pulling the cart before the horse. But the other problem is just these over-bloated budgets. If these movies were made between $20 and $40 million, then Morbius having a return of $163,865,530 worldwide would have been a good return on a budget between $20 and $40 million, and they could chalk it up to, well, Morbius isn't really that known of a character, so it's not going to make nearly as much money as Venom can. But what that could also do with Sony's Spider-Man, with Sony's Spider-Verse, if these budgets were cut down to $20 to $40 million, is that now they can be a lot more experimental, and that's how they sell their series. So if one movie doesn't work, no problem. They can just dump it and move on. Hopefully they make some money from it, because again, a budget between $20 and $40 million, if Morbius had returns of over $150 million plus worldwide, that would have been a good return on a movie that may not have worked in the general scheme of things. But if they keep maintaining these $100 million blockbusters, at some point Sony's going to lose enough money to where they're going to have to forego their rights to Spider-Man, whether they like it or not, because they can't keep coasting on Spider-Man No Way Home forever. At some point you lose enough money, your hand is going to be forced to where you're going to have to sell the rights. You're going to have to sell the rights to Spider-Man movies back to Marvel, just because you lost too much money making a bunch of stupid moves, making a bunch of over-budgeted bad movies that, quite frankly, no one is gonna watch. Perfect example. Who the hell is El Muerto? Nobody is going to go see a movie just about El Muerto by itself. Well, maybe with the exception of the one super fan of Spider-Man, but again, those people are the exception in this case, and not really the rule. even Kraven the Hunter isn't that popular of a character. Again, if you're trying to bet on, the most steady horse here, why didn't they do the movie with Silver Sable and Black Cat? They chose to do Morbius over Silver Sable and Black Cat when, and I hate to use this term, but there isn't a better term. More normie conformies know who Silver Sable and Black Cat are, especially Black Cat. More normie conformies know who those two are compared to Morbius, yet they went all in with Morbius because, hey, Jared Leto is attached to it, but we're not going to lower our budgets. And guys, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here because I know I probably dragged this on way longer than it needs to be. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so, and let me know what you guys think about Sony's Spider-Man movies. Would they be better if they were smaller budget, or should they just stick the course? Because in my opinion, if they stick the course, they're going to have a really, really bad landing, and they're going to have no choice but to sell the Spider-Man rights back to Marvel, and that may actually be more disastrous for Spider-Man in the long run. So I'm going to go ahead and truly end it right here, guys. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. If you've been following me long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos, so I will just see you guys next time.